every spring, something that people have worked hard to get is taken from them, much to their confusion and dismay. I'm not talking about taxes, which are a necessity, but a valuable hour of sleep. As college students, many of us have busy lives, well, until recently. When conditions are normal, we value sleep as a precious commodity that does not come easily to us unless we manage our time well. And twice a year, our sleep schedules become messed up for seemingly no good reason. Messing up sleep schedules should be something only we do to ourselves. I'm a college kid too. We are creatures of habit and routine. It is hard enough to keep track of one's business and daily life without jolts to one's schedule and daily routine. I'm here today to advocate for making daylight savings time permanent. The American people should not be forced to change their habits to conform to an outdated policy that carries little merit today. I will give a short history of daylight savings, explain the issues with clock changes, and demonstrate why permanent daylight savings time is better than permanent standard time. First, some history. Daylight savings time was proposed by none other than Ben Franklin in 1784, with a claim that people could save money on their candles by waking up earlier in the summer months. However, this was done mainly as a joke because Franklin was making fun of himself for sleeping until noon every day. Daylight savings time was not actually used until over a century later, when countries adopted it to save precious gas and fuel during the World Wars. After the wars, localities began observing daylight savings time in different capacities, causing logistical issues for citizens. The Uniform Time Act of 1966 established daylight savings time standards for America, although it was not required. Arizona, for example, has never recognized daylight savings time. It has been slightly altered over the years, but never too significantly. So the purpose of changing the calendars twice a year is to save energy. Let's look at the numbers. A 2008 study by the U.S. Department of Energy claimed that the extension of daylight savings time saved up to 1.3 billion kilowatt hours of electricity, or the amount used by more than 100,000 American households per year. Therefore, it seems like this is a good idea, and it's worth us spending a few minutes of needless stress to remember to fix our clocks out on twice a year. Well, not necessarily. In the same year, a study by the National Bureau of Economic Research claimed that an increase in heating and cooling energy canceled out the savings in electricity almost entirely, making the result of changing clocks for daylight savings time negligible at best. Whether changing the clocks every year actually conserves energy is very debatable. And when you're looking at making a major change, it is important to consider the effects of the change and whether the positives outweigh the negatives. As we explored earlier, the positives of clock changing are questionable at best, but changing clocks causes a lot of issues in society, including physical endangerment. To understand what makes changing clocks dangerous, we need to look at the statistics. According to a German study in Current Biology, the magazine, changing the clocks messes with the circadian rhythm of the human body. Humans lack seasonality, meaning that their bodies adjust with the sun naturally. When we're asked to change our schedule in unnatural ways, it often negatively impacts our sleep. This is not exclusive to daylight savings, but it is a thing whenever someone asks us to wake up at an odd time. This leads to a phenomenon known as Sleepy Monday, the day after we spring forward into daylight savings time. Scientific studies have found that heart attack risk may increase up to 10% on the Monday and Tuesday after springing forward. Accidents and suicides have also been shown to increase in the first few weeks following the spring forward, and workplace productivity drops the week of Sleepy Monday. Falling back isn't quite as bad, but there are no discernible differences or benefits between that week and any other week surrounding. Also, changing clocks is not great for the economy. The airline industry reports that they lose about $147 million a year due to time change confusion, and time changes are estimated to cost Americans $1.7 billion in wages just from changing clocks. A small amount when averaged per person, but especially in tight times such as the ones that are supposed to be ahead, anything helps. If we choose to progress from biannual clock changes, the options become permanent standard time and permanent daylight savings time. I prefer permanent daylight savings time. It allows Americans to experience more light per day, which is shown to have a positive effect on mental health. Wintertime, which is normally under standard time, is shown to be the worst season for depression, with many attributing their depression issues to constant darkness outside in the morning and at night, With permanent daylight savings time, we would get an extra hour of sunlight before the cold, dark night rolls in the afternoon. In the summer, the advantages of daylight savings time over standard time can be seen in physical activity. Adults will have more daylight for socializing and physical activity after work, while kids generally have all day, but sometimes the temperatures are too high for such activity, meaning an hour later in the afternoon could be good for getting some exercise in. Criminal activity tends to be lowered with more afternoon daylight as well, as economists Jennifer Doliak and Nicholas Sanders found that robberies dropped about 7% overall and 27% in the evening hours under daylight savings. They stated, most street crime occurs in the evening around common commuting hours of 5 to 8 p.m., and more ambient light during typical high crime hours makes it easier for victims and passers-by to see potential threats and later identify wrongdoers. More daylight is also better for the economy, as industries like golf courses and restaurants report higher profits during daylight savings time, possibly due to weather, but also due to that hour after work potentially. And the one disadvantage would be that work and school would start in the dark, which would be odd, admittedly, and possibly a little dangerous. Kids would need to be more careful walking to school, and people would need to be more careful driving in the dark every morning. The potential safety issues in the morning are a legitimate concern, but the disadvantages in mental health, lowering crime, encouraging physical activity, and economic benefit should outweigh this. Getting an established concept like biannual clock changes to change may seem difficult, but it's gotten a lot of support. A 2013 Rasmussen poll showed that 45% of Americans think the changing clock is not worth the hassle, as compared to just 37% who do. 14 states with support from both sides of the political spectrum have at least proposed with doing away with the time changes entirely, and most of them are pushing toward permanent daylight savings time, except for Texas, who wants permanent standard time. 7 states have approved legislation and are just waiting on approval from the federal government to do so. The future is coming, and it's up to us young people to transform an outdated policy that doesn't benefit anything to one that benefits our financial, physical, and mental well-being as a country. Thank you.